Hey everybody, what's up? It's Joke Story Trick Live. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you for tuning in. This is crazy. I decided I was going to do this afternoon. I've been talking about it for a while. I knew I wanted to do it like regular once a week, one night a week. I didn't know when. I decided this morning, Tuesdays were going to work. So I quickly made some graphics that say Tuesdays at 9 p.m. I figured 9's a good time. Everyone's finished dinner, you're chilling. And then after an interview I did today, I did a live interview with Brian Miller today on his show, his networking show, and Beyond Networking is the name of the show. And I said, you know what, I think I'm going to start it tonight. There's no reason not to. So let me explain what you're watching right now. I've been going live on Facebook a lot and saying things like, hey, I'm getting ready for the show, and then when I go to do the show, I have to log off because the show is for a paid audience, and Facebook public is not a paid audience, and people say, where can we see you live? So unfortunately, I can't just sit and do live streams for free on the internet doing magic shows, because that's what I get paid to do. So we have been doing some things. I've got one in the works for a charity. I've done some charity stuff in the past with live streams, but I thought, you know, Joke Story Trick has been a web series that I've done going back to like 2009 or 2010, and it's a great format for a live stream broadcast. So I thought we would do that. I thought we would do a live stream version of Joke Story Trick. So instead of a 3 to 5 minute video like they are on my YouTube channel, these are going to be like a 40 to 45 minute broadcast conversation. And so when I say conversation, this show is going out to YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. Follow me on all those. My screen name is the same on all three. It's Michael Kent Live. So it's Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. You can follow me on all three if you'd like, and you can chat on all three. I will be reading the chats throughout the show. I'd like this to be a conversation. I'd like it to be fun. This is something I've wanted to do for a long time. Ever since I've started live streaming, listen, long time is relative. 6 weeks ago is what we're talking about. And 6 weeks ago, as you all know, feels like 6 months ago. I've been wanting to do a show where we can just talk. Now, what I have been wanting to do for a long time is a show that involves some pop culture, some news, some things like that. And so we will be bringing a little bit of that into this broadcast, into this live stream. So if you're here, say hello in the chat. Let everyone know you're here. That'll also let me know that some folks are watching, and we've got living, breathing humans on the other side of the camera. And thanks. On a Tuesday night, it's cool of you to tune in. This is Joke Story Trick Live. I hope to be doing quite a bit of these. So even on the road, once things start back up, whenever that happens, I hope to even do these from the road. I think that I can completely broadcast this show from a hotel room. I don't see why not. So the first segment that I wanted to do on this Joke Story Trick Live is talk about a news story. And I think that it'll always be the case that a news story comes up like right when I'm about to go live. I think that's the case. I think that's what will always happen. And of course, that happened today. So what I'm going to do first of all is just read. If you don't mind me, hopefully it's not insulting that I'm reading to you. I personally don't like to be read to. But this headline says, White House to wind down coronavirus task force as focus shifts to aftermath. And so this is a Reuters report. Let me read it first, and then we'll talk about it a little bit. So here's the story. Reuters says the White House coronavirus task force will wind down as the country moves to a second phase that focuses on the aftermath of the outbreak, President Donald Trump said on Tuesday. Trump confirmed the plans after Vice President Mike Pence, who leads the group, told reporters the White House may start moving coordination of the U.S. response to federal agencies in late May. Mike Pence and the task force have done a great job, Trump said during a visit to a mask factory in Arizona, but we're now looking at a little bit of a different form, and the form is safety and opening, and we'll have a different group probably set up for that. Asked if he was proclaiming mission accomplished in the fight against the coronavirus, Trump said, no, not at all. The mission accomplished is when it's over. Trump said Anthony Fauci and Deborah Birx, doctors who assumed a high profile during weeks of nationally televised news briefings, would remain advisors after the group is dismantled. Fauci leads the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, and Birx was response coordinator for the force. We can't keep our country closed for the next 5 years, Trump said when asked why it was time to wind down the task force. More than 70,000 people in the United States have died from COVID-19, the respiratory illness caused by the virus. The U.S. death toll is the highest in the world. Trump acknowledged there might be a resurgence of the virus as states loosen the restrictions on businesses and social life aimed at curbing its spread. It'll be a flame, and we're going to put the flame out, is what he said. So, I want to scroll down in this story because he said they've begun discussing a transition plan with the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, that plays a lead role in distributing urgently needed supplies across the country. So, I don't want to read the entire story. You can go and you can find this story, and please feel free to hit me with your thoughts in the comments. But here's what I think about this. I read this and I instantly got mad. I instantly got that what conservatives call Trump derangement syndrome. I got the red fire in my eyes, and I saw that, and I said, how can he close down the first thought that I had was exactly what reporters asked him was, are you declaring mission accomplished? But the more I read this story, the more I understand it, and I'm okay with it, because this coronavirus task force has largely been a joke to begin with. It's been a show. And the real work is being done by the Deborah Birx, the Anthony Fauci's, if you're in Ohio, the Amy Actons, the people who are the virologists, the epidemiologists, the bug doctors, all of the actual people who have spent their entire careers and lives studying this stuff. That's where the real work is being done. And as long as those people are still guiding the response, I'm okay with it. If Trump wants to give power and money to FEMA, then it's on, at that point, whether the job's being done at FEMA. But in terms of this coronavirus task force, I'm okay with them not standing up in front of us every night and putting on a show that ends up being basically a campaign message. Because that's all these things have been. For the first week or two, it may have been important. It may have been actual news that was being delivered. Here's what this thing is. Here's what the experts say it is. But as soon as Trump started saying things that were 180 degrees different than what the experts said, that's when it starts to become problematic and it starts to become counterproductive. And not only that, that's also the same time that these, what I call COVID truthers, started rising up, right? Like that's when the people who are sort of denying that this needs to be, these shelter-in-place things need to happen, the people who think that, well, they're basically echoing Trump quotes, aren't they? They're saying, we can't let the cure be worse than the disease. That's a direct Trump quote, and you see that on the signs out of the state houses. You hear things like, oh gosh, that, you know, that all of these virologists, all of these doctors aren't giving you the real numbers. We even had a state senator here in Ohio, Nino Vitale, from where I'm from Urbana, say to a reporter at the State House rally where he wasn't wearing a mask that maybe it was Bill Gates who released this. We don't know. He said, I hope that there'd be no one that evil in the world. But maybe it was Bill Gates. And then the same guy, just yesterday or the day before, he said the reason that he doesn't wear a mask is because God didn't wear, or Jesus didn't wear a mask, or some shit like that. That's why he didn't wear a mask. That's what he said. Ridiculous. This guy is crazy. And we won't get too much into the personal attacks, but if you Google that name, he's got a lot of stuff in the past that is just on the radical, extreme side of right-wing politics. But I've gotten off the track, and that is this coronavirus task force. I am okay with them disbanding it because it seems like they're not saying, job done. It seems like what they're saying now is what they should have said all along, and that is, we are now going to give this to the agencies to deal with. And to me, when I hear that, I say, yeah, let's let the CDC deal with this. Yeah, let's let FEMA deal with this, disaster management. Let's let these agencies, maybe FEMA can get doctors masks. Maybe FEMA can help, they're freaking New York City hospital workers wearing garbage bags as hospital gowns. Maybe FEMA can help with that. Because the coronavirus task force sure as shit has not. And that's what I have to say about that. Hey, let's tell a joke. What do you say? I put out first of all, I love jokes. I love stand-up comedy, but that's not what this is. This isn't about stand-up comedy style jokes. This is about, groaners. This is about like joke book jokes. I love joke book jokes, and I'm always searching for like the best groaner joke. One that isn't so like cheesy, but it actually has some intelligence to it. And I picked out one that I like because I like pun jokes as well. And so I'm going to read to you a pun-style joke. I hope you enjoy this. Many years ago, in the South Pacific, there was a small island kingdom that was ruled by a kind and benevolent king. Each year on the king's birthday, the residents of the island gave the king a new chair as a token, a big kingly throne, as a token of their love and respect for the king. And each year, the king would put last year's gift up in the attic of his small house. After many years of ruling the island, the weight of the large number of birthday presents stored up in the attic became too heavy and caused his hut, his house, to fall down. It's a sad story, but there's a moral to the story. And the moral of the story is that people in grass houses shouldn't stow thrones. Boom. I love it. I love the long pun jokes, and I've got a lot more of those long pun jokes to come. Feel free, please, if you have your own joke, to throw it up in the comments. I want to see what we have here. Let's see. Oh, my chat completely reset. I'll read a couple of them. Heather Johnson, who I went to high school with, says, "Hi, Mike." Hi to you, Heather. Hopefully we've got some folks watching. Oh, we do. We've got some folks watching. Feel free, if you have a joke, in the comments. Mark DeTulio just gave me a groan, and that's okay. We're allowed to groan because that was not a good joke. But that's a groaner joke. That's what groaner jokes are. I like puns. So a few weeks ago, I put a Facebook status up that said, "Give me your best groaner jokes," and that's what I would like you to do. So, however you know me, whether it's through YouTube, or Twitch, or Facebook, I want you to submit your best groaner joke. And do that between now and next Tuesday, and I will read your joke on Joke Story Trick Live. I have a few of your jokes that you've submitted. So, here's one. "I got my wife a new refrigerator for her birthday. I can't wait to see her face light up when she opens it." I like that one. I like that joke. That's from J. Randall Hicks. I know J. Randall Hicks because we took an Avner workshop together and sat next to each other. That's actually where I met J. Randall Hicks, but he's here in Columbus, Ohio. Okay, here's a good one. "The butcher walked backward into the meat grinder the other day. He's a little behind in his work." It's cute. It's cute. It's a pun joke. I like pun jokes. That's from Sasha Baker Standish, who I was in the Ohio State marching band with. That's a good joke, Sasha. Thank you so much. And let's see what else. We have, here's another one. The butcher walked backward into the meat grinder the other day reminds me of one. When I was in the band back in college, Greg Hosel was my squad leader 1 year. Greg was a little bit older than I was, I think by a couple years. And he had a great joke. And just the way he told it was good. It's almost the same joke as the butcher. It's there was a woman who, it was a horrible accident. She backed up into an airplane propeller. And then he looked down and he goes, "Disaster." Disaster. It's another pun. But see, Sasha was like, he's behind in his work. That's a one that you can tell to a kid. Disaster, you have to explain. They have to say the ass word to repeat that joke. So not quite as good. Anyway, here's another one. One man becomes a father for the first time. He's in the hospital with his own father. The older father, the grandpa, he gives the new father a book of dad jokes. I love dad jokes. "Wow," the son says, "I'm honored." "Hi, honored," replied the old man, "I'm dad." That's a meta-ass joke. That's a good joke. That's a joke that's a dad joke that references being a dad joke within the joke. I'm going to use that one. That one's one that I think, like, I can repeat that. I don't know. Jimmy Mack is a buddy of mine at Shadowbox Live, and Jimmy has a great joke. This one is a priest, a minister, and a rabbit walk into a bar. The rabbit says, "I think I might be a typo." Right? That's a really good joke. And Jimmy had another joke. He didn't write on this, but he told it to me years ago, and I remember it because it really made me laugh. And he said, "Why don't kleptomaniacs like puns? Because they keep taking things literally." Okay, it's a good kleptomaniac joke. Mark DiTullio has a joke. It's not a good joke, but it's a joke. He said, "Is that hand sanitizer in your pocket, or are you just happy to be within 6 feet of me?" It's topical. It's topical, but I wouldn't say that it's exactly a great one. Heather Johnson liked the last one, I guess. I think that was a response to the kleptomaniac joke, though, Mark. I apologize. Barry McDonough has a joke. Let's hear Barry's joke. "How do you tell the difference between an X chromosome and a Y chromosome? Pull down their genes." Nerd jokes. The science jokes are great. I'll drink to the science joke. Tonight I'm drinking an old fashioned. This is a smoked maple Knob Creek old fashioned. It's what I always drink now. This is my drink. If I'm not drinking beer, I'm drinking an old fashioned. And I've been trying not to drink too much because in the beginning of this pandemic, March 10th, 11th, and 12th, holy shit, I drank a lot. I was stress drinking, and it would have been bad if I would have kept that up. Let's just say I was masking my sadness from losing shows with this. But since then, things have turned pretty good, and now the stay-at-home stuff feels good to me. I hope it feels good to you. I hope you're not too sick of the people that you live with. And it looks like we should move on, so let's move on. So there was a story I wanted to tell. I did a whole True Stories show a couple weeks ago. And there was a story that I wanted to tell in the True Stories show that I didn't have the ability to tell. And I want to see if we've gotten a photo yet. I'm waiting for a photo from my buddy. He didn't send it to me, but I'm going to tell the story anyway. So, as I mentioned a little bit ago about the marching band, that was something that was really important to me back when I was in college. And I actually have somewhere, let me see if I can find a photo of me in the band for you. This would be cool if I can get one. Oh yeah, check this out. There's me. Look at that. Look at that leg lift. That's impressive. That's me in circa 1999, maybe the year 2000. So about 20 years old that photo is. And in 2002, I got to go to the national championship game. It was actually in 2003. It was the 2002 season. And so, rewind a little bit. My very first year in the band, one of the older guys, we went to the Sugar Bowl. He said, "You're never going to go to a bowl better than this, so just soak it in." The next year, we didn't go to a bowl at all. And so I was like, maybe he was right. And then I graduated in 2001. But I was set to be the head squad leader in the band, so I re-enrolled to be in the band a fifth year. I did that, and we ended up having an undefeated season and going to the national championship and winning the national championship. And so if you can imagine a bunch of college-age people, we spent 9 days in the desert in Tempe, Arizona, partying after the national championship. Well, we were the last ones out of the stadium there. It was at Sun Devil Stadium. We were the last ones out. And by the time we got out of the stadium, it was like 1:30 or 2 in the morning. The bars were closed at this point by the time. So there was nowhere to go and party, but we had the rookie room. We always have the rookie room. And what I mean by that is this dumb tradition that I don't know if it was dumb, but it's what we did. This tradition of everyone in the band, we all stayed like 3 or 4 to a room. And maybe it was 2 or 3 to a room, I don't remember. But we would make the rookies stay in the same room together. And that was what we called the rookie room, and that's the room we would party in. Because they were basically, we treated them poorly, and they cleaned up after us. And it's one of those things that was like, well, I had to do it when I was a rookie, so now that I'm a fifth year, you have to do it. It's like one of those tradition things that just kind of continues to get passed on. So in any case, that happened. We told them, at least I was a good squad leader, and I said, first of all, take all the sheets off your bed and hide them somewhere so that you have dry, clean sheets when the party's over. And fill the bathtub with ice. We'll come in, we'll put our drinks in the bathtub, and just clean up when we're done. And then that's all you got to do. Seems simple enough. Literally none of those things happened. We get in there, and obviously the sheets are still on the bed. There's no ice in the bathtub. They were a little bit sassy, the rookies, that year. And the party got crazy. I'll describe it this way. Basically, everything that there is to break in a hotel room was broken. Both of the beds, they come on those little platforms, in the hotel. Both of the platforms just completely crushed. What else happened? The TV, I don't think the TV busted. I know that the curtains were all ripped off the windows. All the pictures were off the windows. The ceiling was just splattered with champagne and beer everywhere. And then, I can't remember if it was me or someone else, went to the bathroom and noticed that all their towels were still hanging up dry. So we decided that they shouldn't have done that because I warned them, and threw the towels in the bathtub, which was not filled with ice. Turned on the water. They'll have wet towels. That was the prank. And then that became worse, because then someone went to the bathroom and they saw the towels, and then they threw something else in there, like their trash. And then someone thought, oh, hey, let's make some coffee. We've got warm water, we've got a bathtub, and they emptied the coffee grounds into the bathtub. And then people started throwing their empties in there. And then it became trash. And then I'm pretty sure there were people peeing in it. And then one person came through with a giant ashtray, like a giant, 30-pound ashtray full of sand, and threw that in there. And so now that bathtub's full of sand, people say, where'd you get the sand? And I would say, we were in the desert, but it was from an ashtray. And it got bad. The bathtub was full to the top, full of junk. It was crazy. So by the end, it was pretty bad. The next day, I was expecting it to be cleaned. They cleaned nothing, and they just went and stayed in other people's places, I guess, is what they did. And I was out with my parents, because we didn't fly out till 9 p.m. the next day or some crazy late hour. And I'm in my parents at a Barnes & Noble in downtown Tempe, Arizona, and I see the assistant director of the band, and he's looking at me while on the phone. He's pointing at me, and he's on the phone. And he points at me, and he goes, come here. Gets off the phone. I'm with my folks. I come up, and he goes, what happened last night in the room? I said, what do you mean? He goes, you need to get back to the hotel now. No laughter, no nothing. So my parents took me back to the hotel, super embarrassing. And, oh my God, our poor percussion instructor, who's now departed, he was crying because he was so upset at the mess that we had made. But the hotel had found it, hadn't been cleaned, and when the maids came in, they came back, they reported to the band, they said, this is going to be, I think they said something like $2,000, $3,000 worth of damage that you need to pay now. And the director was mad because he said, this is going to be in the papers. So you need to clean this now. So we all got in there and we scrubbed and we fixed and we cleaned everything we could. I cleaned most of that bathtub myself. It was one of the most disgusting things I've ever done. And we cleaned it to the point where it couldn't have really been cleaned much more. I mean, that was about as good as it could get. And so by the end, they went back and they looked at it again and they said, it'll be $600 or something along those lines. And then we said, what do we do? Oh, it was all the squad leaders. We all sat around in a circle, pitching in $20 bills. And we did that until we had, I think it was $600. And the hotel said, okay, that'll be fine. You're good. Don't worry about it anymore. And somewhere out there, there's a photo of this floating around. I texted my buddy today to see if he could send me the photo. So if he sends that during this broadcast, I will share it with you. So I wanted to share that story. I know that I know it's an interesting, weird one, and maybe it's only interesting if you're a college football fan. But being that we won't even have college football this year, I don't think. Hopefully you enjoyed that. So I want to turn the pages a little bit and kind of give a plea, an ask of you. What I'd like. Oh, it's going to bring up the chat again. This is strange. This is a new chat overlay for me, and every time I bring it up, it restarts it, which is super weird. It's not supposed to do that. It should just keep the same one. So if you start typing, it will come up on the screen, and like I said, I'd love it, because this is sort of a test run. This is the very first Joke Story Trick live. But one of the things that I would like is for other people to tell stories on this show. I want guests to come on, and I want those guests to share what they have to share. I want unique, original stories. I'm going to see if I can get our guest on here, because I did have someone lined up, and I want to see if we can get him in. If you have a unique, original story, something that happened to you, a personal story, and it looks like we've got our guest, this is something interesting. Let me introduce our guest now. First of all, thank you so much for those of you who have liked and followed. We've got Jessica Johnson Clouden followed, Brian Glad liked. If you like or follow any of the Twitch, the Facebook, the YouTube, I'll throw it up here on the screen. But let me go to our guest, because he's waiting for us in the Zoom. And this is a gentleman that I met at Shadowbox Live. Now, he's worked for Shadowbox Live in a long time, and I used to be a guest there. So I used to show up every once in a while and do like an entrance to the show. I would sort of introduce the show with magic and then perform an intermission. And they were super cool to me to let me hang out for a little bit. Super talented guy, and he has a story that I thought was pretty crazy and pretty interesting, and something that you don't hear every day. So everyone, please welcome and tell him hello in the comments. This is Chops, JT Walker. Thank you and welcome to the show, Chops. It's good to see you, buddy. I just want to make sure everyone can hear you. Say hello.
Hello.
Yes, we got you. Awesome. Okay, man. Well, take it away, Chops. I'd love to hear your story.
Absolutely. And first and foremost, I apologize if there's random gurgling in the background. I have two huskies, and they like to wrestle and be very loud when they do.
They make a gurgling sound when they wrestle. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. They rah rah rah.
Oh, okay. Got you. Got you.
So hi. Yes. My story, which I feel is rather unique, is that I was paralyzed from the waist down for a good 2 weeks in my senior year of high school, due to something, I don't know, you may have heard of it. It's called Guillain-Barré syndrome. It's somewhat similar to MS. It is a viral infection of the central nervous system. And so one day I woke up and my toes were numb. Just all of my toes, all across, completely numb, and it felt obviously very, very strange, just like when your foot falls asleep, but it kept going. It wasn't dissipating at all, and so something that weird. Of course, I'm not going to keep it to myself. I'm asking everybody, all of my friends, my father, who's a doctor, all of them. Have your toes ever just gone numb? Because mine are. It's a little strange, but I mean, I guess it's not that big of a deal. I was still able to walk just fine. Everybody was basically in the same boat as I was, a little mystified about it, but with this sort of attitude of, I'm sure it's going to go away. You'll be fine. But then the next morning I woke up and my whole feet were numb. And again, super odd sensation, like barely any feeling there. Um, even stranger than the pins and needles sensation you get when your foot does fall asleep and you're coming back to that. It made walking a little bit difficult, but um, I still ended up performing in the school talent show that night.
What?
With completely numb feet. I sang Frank Sinatra's "All by Myself," completely all by myself.
Were
a
you
cappella.
dancing and singing,
I mean, I was moving
dragging and
in a
singing?
dancerly like fashion.
Wow.
But no, not like full on dance. Um, but then that night, so we're 2 days in. You know, it's crept up to my feet, and that night I was just violently ill, just throwing up constantly and dry heaving and retching. I was up the entire night, and so obviously I felt atrocious the next day. So my parents said, "All right, this is probably a little bit serious. We should take you to get checked out." So took me to our family physician, who luckily had an office just across from the hospital, because they ended up just putting me in a wheelchair and wheeling me right over to the hospital from that visit.
Wow.
I don't remember if they actually diagnosed me in that visit, but they could tell it was obviously something was seriously wrong. And I barely remember that transport. I remember getting down there and this kind of haze of being wheeled over, and then I was in a hospital bed, and it ended up creeping all the way up to my waist, and even like half my
Yikes.
toes. I kind of had the stroke thing going on, where half
Yeah,
my
like they call that Bell's palsy. Is that different than Bell's palsy, or is it part of it?
I I think it's slightly different.
Okay.
But yeah, half of my face was definitely sagged down, and you know, I still have a little bit of residual. I think she's just calling me ugly. It's
You had like a Phantom of the Opera thing going on.
a little bit. A little
Yeah.
bit. I spent 10 days, I think, in the ICU, and I was really fortunate in two factors. That A, I was so young. I was only 18 at the time. And B, they caught it incredibly early, because I was not shy that there was something really weird going on. And so after about 10 days in the ICU, they there had been enough of a recovery. Immunoglobulin, I believe, is what they were pumping into me.
That sounds made up.
Of course, the whole thing sounds made up.
Yeah.
You spell it like William with a G.
Yeah.
Well, like a French William. It's
Sure.
Gullan,
Sure.
and then dash BARRE accent
And-
aigu, whichever one that is. Older people that left the disease untreated for longer ended up either permanently disabled or dead, because it can seize your life functions. And an interesting thing when I look back on it, is that at no point did it even occur to me that I wasn't going to get better.
Oh.
It was very. I
Now-
don't remember consciously thinking that at the time. Consciously thinking I'm going to get better, but I remember looking back, not thinking.
Do you
This is
think
going
that
to stay with me.
that hope was given to you by your caretakers, by the doctors and nurses who were taking care of you? Is that something you think that they consciously did?
I don't know if they were trying to, but no, they were being. From what I've experienced, I've been around a lot of medical personnel because, like I said, my father was a doctor, still is, and they were being as cautious as you always need to be in that profession. I mean, you can't make promises. I've seen too many times of them just having to say, look, we can't say for certain we'd like it to be this way, but I can't give you that definite.
Yeah.
So you hold on to that.
It's a job I couldn't do.
Yeah, exactly. Matter of fact, at one point they scared the holy hell out of me because they had detected some sort of murmur in my heart, just one little murmur at some point, and so a doctor came in and said, "Hey, this is what we found. We're a little nervous about it, but it's probably not much." And then maybe a half hour later, some practitioners were wheeling in equipment saying they were about to put a pacemaker inside my chest.
Oh my God.
And we stopped them saying, hey, no. They said this was an uncertain thing. And then
This is room 307, right? Oh, 703. That's my bad. This goes to down the hall. This
Yeah.
is, oh my gosh.
It was a slightly freaky experience. But there is a further shade to this story.
Oh boy.
This is what I mentioned earlier, that I was concerned that I would need to remain gentlemanly in my story.
Well, you can be gentlemanly, but this is Facebook. I mean, no one's been gentlemanly on Facebook for the last 7 years. So
That's true. So, I mean, obviously, I wasn't, better like that. Once I got out of the ICU, I went back home. Was getting my homework brought to me from school. I wasn't going back there, and I was engaged in constant physical therapy to get my legs back working again. And so I was, my bedroom had been upstairs in the house, and obviously that was a bit of an issue. So they had me kind of take up residence in my sister's room, and so I had been sleeping in there. And she just occupied a different room in the house. And so it was during this time of my recovery of slowly gaining back feeling from the navel down, sleeping in my sister's room, that I had my very first wet dream.
oh no. Oh no.
That never happened to me in my early adolescence.
But what level of actual feeling did you have?
Well, here's the thing. I mean, we're talking about an 18-year-old boy.
Yeah.
So obviously, there were constant stimuli.
You're an 18-year-old boy.
I'm an 18-year-old boy.
The world is stimuli.
It absolutely is.
Sure.
But there wasn't anything that I could do about that.
Yeah.
Even the physical reaction was strange.
My gosh. That's crazy,
I
man.
guess the best way I could put it is partial inflation. If that makes sense.
So, my question is this: were you able to hide this from your sister and keep your dignity, or was this just like open secret in the family now?
First of all, awful bold of you to assume that I ever had dignity. She was my much younger sister, so she had no idea.
Okay, good.
From what I recall, just told my dad about it.
Oh, well, that's brave of you. I don't think I could have had that conversation with my father.
I couldn't do much for myself as far as changing the sheets.
Yeah, well, gosh, I can imagine. I'm just picturing you like like Lieutenant Dan on the ground, pulling yourself over and changing the sheets, and just kind of dripping and nasty, and just sort of trying. I'm sorry, Dad. Sister, get out of the room. I'm sorry. Just sort of like an angry Born on the 4th of July sequel or something. Those are my two paralyzed vet references. I don't know why. I don't know why you were a disgruntled Vietnam War vet in both of my examples, but that happened. So
no, I think given the lameness and the sexual nature, it would be much more akin to go with a Dr. Scott from Rocky Horror.
Yes. Okay. Yes. Yes. And you're now.
Whether or not I was wearing fishnets at the time will just be up to your imagination.
And speaking of this is a perfect segue to our next segment, and that is. So, if anyone has watched the show Hot Ones, my wife and I are addicted to this show. We love it, and every time we watch the show Hot Ones, where the host interviews a celebrity while eating successively hotter and hotter wings, barbecue like buffalo wings, we have to, every time we do it, we have to eat wings. But one of my favorite segments on that show is where he has people explain their Instagram photos. So, with that said, I went through your Facebook page. And so wearing fishnets and wearing different costumes, you're not a stranger to. You do this for a living as a professional singer and dancer. I've seen you in drag. I've seen you dressed up. I've seen you in a million different outfits. But there was one that I found that I thought was super interesting that I had not seen before. And I'm going to bring that picture up here. Now, this seems to be, what we're looking at now is a picture of you possibly singing in like a country band trio or as maybe like a coal miner. It looks like something from Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? What is this photo?
This is a photo from an excellent summer that I had in an excellent production. Normally year-round, I work at Chatterbox Live. It's a full-time job, and it takes up pretty much all of my performance time. But I try to branch out and work with other groups as often as I can because you meet some amazing people. And so there is a group here in Columbus. They've been established for multiple decades now, Actors Theater of Columbus. And they perform at Schiller Park, which is an outdoor amphitheater. And they do 4 shows every summer. Their season is always 4 shows. And they usually try to do some about half Shakespeare and half other contemporary plays from the general time period of most of Shakespeare's works. And they're awesome people. And this was a show that I got to do with them. This was the first show that I ever got to do with them. It's from the Shakespeare play A Winter's Tale, which is one of his comedies. Matter of fact, if you've ever heard the theater expression "exit stage left, pursued by bear," which is famously the most absurd stage direction out there. That's what this that's from this show, A Winter's Tale, and we set it in turn of the century Appalachia.
That's why it doesn't look like Shakespeare. Okay, I was failing to make the connection. I was saying that does not look like A Winter's Tale.
The original show takes place in between two different countries, Bohemia and I can't remember the name of the other one right now. But so we decided to kind of take that and transfer it to a sort of West Virginia and Tennessee.
Cool.
Area.
Accents and all. You did all the dialects. Oh, that's great. I love it.
Because something that's been noted before is that Appalachian accents are actually pretty similar
to Elizabethan. Yeah, there's a colony outside of, I want to say Maryland, that still has an accent. It's very similar to an Appalachian accent, but it's a colony, and I'll have to look this up to find the exact name of the place, where they claim that this group of people, the descendants of this place, still live in the same area, and the accent that they have is an original accent from the first settlers that came to America, because they've been so isolated for so many years, geographically isolated, and it's very much like the way that someone like the Amish live, and they pass on what they call Dutch, but it's like a kind of like a German accent, German words and things. Really interesting stuff.
Pennsylvania Dutch is what they call the...
Yeah. I'll have to look up the name of this colony. I want to say it's Maryland. Maybe someone in the comments can correct me, and maybe someone knows exactly what I'm talking about. But anyway, awesome story, and that's crazy. We're glad that you can walk. and glad that I don't know. We'll have to. I don't know if the wet dreams have continued, Chops, but hopefully you've got.
That was the only one I had.
Okay, ever. Okay. Well, at least you've got a good story to go with it, and we've got a good story for our show. Everyone, thanks to Chops Walker. You can see him performing once Shadowbox Live opens back up, and we'll see you next time, buddy. All right, so we've got some awesome stories that we've had. We've got some, we've had some horrible jokes, and let me get us to our final section of the show, and that is, of course, the one that made me start this whole thing in the first place, and that is tricks. All right, so. I'm going to try to do this one. Let's get rid of our banner here so we have a little bit more room. I don't know, if you know me at all, and I know a few people know me personally on here, I'm a big knife guy. I love knives. It's rare for me to go anywhere without having a knife, like a pocket knife that I carry with me, just sort of in my pocket or on the desk next to me, on the table. And that came from my grandfather who is still living at 89 years old, doing well. He's actually fine during this pandemic because anyone his age, like, they lived through the Great Depression. This is nothing. He had like 2 years of food already stocked before any of this. My dad and I went and visited him before any of this lockdown stuff, and he wasn't scared at all. So he's doing real well. And Grandpa Don, I loved knives from a young age because of him. He had at the time a desk full of knives, this big roll top desk, or you'd pull the top down and it'd just be full of them, hundreds of them. And that over the years, over my lifetime, eventually grew to thousands of them, thousands of knives. And he started giving them to me. I have a lot of them in a display box and stuff, but this is one of my favorites. It's an ivory knife. I don't know if you can see. You can see that pretty well. This one has ivory handles, or sometimes the knife people call these scales. I don't know why they call them scales. I guess maybe back in the day those were made out of a scale of some sort. But anyway, that's an ivory knife. He had another one that I really liked. See, this is very, very smooth. But what I like is the bone knives because they have sort of a texture that you can feel, and I like that, especially when you're using the knife because these are useful knives. It's a pen knife. They have more of a bone, but I like the look of the ivory. It's very classy. Of course, that's what it looks like when it's completely opened up. That's what the bone looks like. You just kind of wave it like this. Now, I know a lot of people right now are wondering how I'm doing this, and that's totally fine. What you don't see is just under the frame in my pocket. You can't see these both at the same time, but that's where I have the other knife. See, it's a two-knife trick. It's a two-knife trick, and that's how it works. There's a white knife and a black knife, and one's made out of bone, one's made out of the ivory. See, that's the bone, that's the ivory. We have both of them. But if I reach in and I grab one, we'll say just the ivory knife. The whole point is, if you're looking over here at the ivory knife, you're not able to look down here at the bone knife. You can't see. That's the ivory knife. This is the. Let's do it again. That's confusing. I know. I did that really fast. We have an ivory knife and a bone knife. Of course, remember, if you look at one of them, that's the ivory knife. You can't see the ivory knife. Okay, that's very confusing. Remember, there's an ivory knife and a bone knife. I'm going to put one away completely, and I'll step back a little bit so you can see this. If I reach in, let's see. We'll just grab the. This time we'll take the ivory knife. And if I put the ivory knife in my pocket, it goes into my pocket like this. There's no way that the one in my hand could be the ivory knife. Because if the one in my hand is the ivory knife, that means the one in my pocket is the bone knife. And that, my friends, is my grandfather's favorite two-knife trick. And that, my friends, has been Joke, Story, Trick. I want to thank everyone for watching the show tonight. We're going to leave this broadcast up so other people can see it. Make sure that you follow, like, and subscribe. Send the video to your friends. Thank you again to Chops Walker for being a part of this, and thank you all of you for your jokes. Make sure that you send them in to me for next week. Send me your stories, your jokes, and whatever trick you want me to do. Have a good night. Goodbye.